Okay, so the engine is on the skis. I'm gonna take the bell housing off. Then I'm gonna put on the clutch. Whoa. Hopefully I don't trip over shit. Probably do a little bit of rum and coke, but try not to trip over stuff. There's the pressure plate. There's the clutch. I don't know how far I'll get tonight because rum and coke. I'm gonna try to get this bell housing off and we'll see how far we get after that. Boom! Finally! Holy cats! Alright, so the bell housing is off. First step is this hole in the middle of the back of the flywheel here. There's this bearing. This bearing needs to get put in here. And that is where the nose of the transmission input shaft sits. So that goes right in there, right? The Emperor's made a critical error on the time for our attack has come. But that bearing needs to go in the back of this flywheel hole here, pocket, this surface here. So I'm probably gonna get a piece of a socket that's the right size to tap that in with a hammer. All right, let's do that. All right, so I am using a 1-inch socket, and I'm gonna pound this thing into that hole with a hammer. I gotta tap gently first to get it in there and make sure it's going in straight, but then we're gonna pound it home. There's a lip on this, there's a lip, so we're gonna put it in till it won't go in any further with that lip. All right, that appears to be in there. All right, so these are 11/16" hex heads, and my documentation says 85 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna double check this torque before I move forward with the process. Don't want the crank to turn. All right, so I got the bell housing off. And I got these 3 pins in, but I'm gonna tell a little story about getting these pins in. The pins are the locator pins for the pressure plate. They are 0.317 in diameter, and the holes are apparently a little bit smaller. So trying to get the pins in, you know, I had to get out my BFH and give them a little persuasion, let's say, to get them in, right? Because it was interference fit. They didn't want to go in, so I popped them in the freezer. Because things contract when they get cold a little bit. So did that, pulled them out after, you know, a while. First 2 went in fine. Third one kept, you know, I'd give it a persuasion little tap or 2, and it would fall out onto the ground. I'd have to like find the thing, you know, where to go. Try again. Well, one of the times I dropped it and had to pick it back up, I went to the wrong hole. I started trying to tap it into this guy instead. Thankfully, the pressure plate that I'm using uses the wider holes. Obviously this, you know, the wider holes probably help to point to holes that you can see. But if I had to use those narrow holes, I'd be hosed because I screwed up the threads in one of them. No material came out that I'm aware of, so I'm not worried about the balance or anything. But yeah, don't do that when you're working on yours. So the next step, I'm going to clean up this flywheel. You can see it's been on the back of the engine for a couple of years, sitting on the test stand. Obviously I've touched it. It's got some dirt and grime on it. I want to clean that off with some brake cleaner, scrub it up, and then I'm going to move forward with putting the clutch and the pressure plate on. I'm going to guess that this pin, when I was tapping it in there, and I've already trial fit the pressure plate, it seems as though the pin, well, it got squished a little. Maybe I hit it too hard. I gave it a little too much persuasion. So it's, I don't know, footballed, whatever you want to call it, right? Its diameter is a little wider in the middle than it is on the end. So I might have to use a little persuasion to get the pressure plate on too. But I think I'll just, you know, be able to get a small socket out and tap on the, you know, on the, put the socket over the pressure plate pin and push the pressure plate on by giving it a couple little taps, or at least that's the hope. So next step, clean this thing off. Clutch, using the clutch alignment tool. I'll probably show a little bit of that because I want to show the cheap plastic pressure plate alignment. I'm sorry, the clutch alignment tool that you know, comes in the kit with the clutch versus the actual metal tool that I'm going to use. I am going to clean up the back of the flywheel here and then move forward. All right. All right, so here's the clutch. Here's the plastic tool that came with the clutch. You know, it's got the 26 splines, the tailpiece that goes into the pilot bearing here. You slide that in to the pilot bearing, push the clutch up against the flywheel, and then you put the pressure plate on and tighten the pressure plate down using your torque wrench to the proper torque. So this plastic alignment tool, you know, it's got some good flex to it, up and down, I don't know, a couple millimeters. A couple millimeters is enough that when you're trying to put the transmission in, if this isn't aligned, you're hosed. So I have this metal tool. It's actually pretty nice. Here, let me show you. So you can buy clutch alignment tools that are specific to an application, or you can get a universal kit. I have the universal kit, so it has exchangeable tips that go along with the size of your transmission's input shaft tip here, pilot, whatever, I don't know what it's called, that goes into the pilot bearing. So let's take this back off. Oh, come on, you can do it. There you go. So my transmission shaft's tailpiece is I don't know what it was, 0.67 or something like that. 0.671, whatever, which apparently is 17 millimeters. So this 17 millimeter tailpiece screws into the end of this clutch alignment tool, which then slides into the pilot bearing. And then it has this end piece that when you turn it, it expands these three wings to fit, well, it doesn't go into the splines, but it holds the clutch centered, you know, like a three-legged stool. Holds it centered, and there's no flex. So let's put the clutch on here and give it a shot. So clutch, put it on there, push the clutch up against there, Now we're gonna expand the wings, or whatever you want to call them, until it's finger tight. And there you go. The clutch barely is moving, less than a millimeter. So that's on there, that's aligned. Go ahead and grab the pressure plate. I'm gonna grab the pressure plate. I got the pressure plate bolts right here. I got my torque wrench. I'm just sort of finger tightening these things. Got 2 more to go. Before I get out the torque wrench, I'm gonna do a couple steps. I'm only gonna take them to 25 foot-pounds. All right, 1 more. Uno más. Yeah, this would probably be easier if the engine were on something else other than these skids. But it's fine. I should probably put on gloves. Bottom hole's the bottom hole. All right, so that clutch alignment tool is holding the clutch nice and perfectly aligned there in the center, so that when I push the trans on there, hopefully it's gonna, whoop. All right, so the spec on this is, well, I don't know, I'm putting it to 25 foot-pounds. Good, all right. So torqued. Now I'm gonna take the alignment tool out, loosen that center wing thing, pull it out. Nice. Alrighty. Sweet. All right, so the clutch fork is in. It's got these little fingers that hold the clutch fork on the pivot post, pivot whatever, ball or whatever. This, I don't know what, throwout bearing, that pushes the fingers of the pressure plate in, which releases the pressure, squeezing the clutch between the pressure plate and the engine, the flywheel, which then disconnects the spinning of the engine from the spinning of the input shaft here. So this comes forward, right, releases the pressure force between the pressure plate and the clutch and the flywheel. So then the clutch is spinning, but it's not connected to anything. This little bolt here on the end of my shift fork is for the hydraulic clutch. So there's a bracket here that goes on, and there's a master cylinder, or I guess it's a slave cylinder, that goes here to have an arm that'll push this back and forth. So this nose goes into that pilot bearing that's in the back of the crankshaft. These splines go in the clutch. And this bearing here rides on the fingers of the pressure plate. All right, so the next step is to push this whole assembly. Oh, see, it's on the transmission there. 4 bolts hold the bell housing to the transmission. Next step is to push this all forward. And made it up with that guy. Then you connect the bell housing to the back of the motor here.